What's going on, everyone? Welcome to today's video. Today we're making French onion soup, really classic recipe that might seem complicated, but at the end of the day, only a couple of ingredients. We're gonna slow cook some onions, a lot of onions in a lot of butter. We're gonna make a soup base out of that, a crouton, most importantly, top all of that off with a lot of Gruyere cheese, throw that under a boiler, and you have French onion soup. So let's jump in the kitchen. We'll show you how to make French onion soup at home. So, French onion soup. We are obviously starting with onions here, and we need a lot of onions. I have the standard yellow onion here, I guess it's called. This is basically the only onion that you'll need to make this recipe. It's a cheap onion. You can use lots of different onions, purple onions, yellow onions, white onions, any of those, but I think the yellow onion is the perfect place to get started. So we're just going to cut it in half. We're going to get the skin or the paper that's on the outside. Sometimes this is just the first layer. Sometimes you need to take off really the outer layer as well. But basically get down to the onion, leave the root intact, so pull off the skin but leave the root intact. And we're just going to cut this lengthwise, I guess, whatever that looks like. Once it's all cut, you're doing this in even slices, slice off the root end, and you'll have basically pieces of onion. We're going to do that a lot of times, but I have a couple of shallots kicking around that need to get used, so you can add that into the soup as well. This is optional. I just happen to have this around. This will add a little bit more of a garlic-ier taste, I guess. This is another member of the onion family. Just a few of these. The yellow onions are the primary, really the star of the show. That's what we're going to use. So cut those down the same way. Take off the paper. Cut them sort of on that long way, I guess. Cut off the root end, and then again you have about equal size pieces of shallot here. So we're just going to repeat that a whole bunch of times until we have a whole bowl full of onions. Again, just add your pieces of onion, all equally sized cut, into the bowl. Give it a toss around so the shallots sort of combine, breaking up any big pieces of onions as you go, and we'll move over to the stove. So butter, we need lots and lots of butter here. We're going to melt that down over medium-high heat until it starts to foam up. And you can see it's starting to foam up here. I've got a piece that's not melted, so just give it a little bit of a swirl. But once all the butter's melted and it starts to foam, add our onions. Be careful not to overcook the butter here. We don't want brown butter or anything. We just want, basically, as soon as it's melted, add the onions, stir it around so it's covered completely in all of that butter you have in your pan. Don't go light on the butter. It's really important here to get that really deep brown braised onion type flavor that we want. So we're going to let these cook for about 6 or 7 minutes or so on medium-high heat until they've started to turn translucent here, and then we're going to wait about 30 minutes. After 30 minutes, it's going to look like this. We've got a deep brown color, but keep going. We want about an hour, 45 minutes to an hour of cooking time for our onions here. You'll be rewarded. So while those onions are cooking for the last 30 minutes, we're going to get our sides prepared. We need cheese. We need a lot of it. I have Gruyere cheese here. It's a French dish, so French cheese makes some sense. You need a lot more cheese than that, though, Matt. Keep going here. Keep grating cheese. This is all going to go on the top. You can really not have too much at this point. So once your cheese is completely grated, you can see it in the back there. Set it aside, and we'll move on to chives. Chives, green onions is another thing you can use here. Chives are, a little bit more delicate. We'll cut those up, and that will be our garnish. Last but not least, we're going to move on to our crouton. Crouton, we're going to rub with a bit of butter and a bit of garlic to add, even more flavor. Garlic and onions go really well together. So just split your garlic in half. Have a piece of just regular bread that's been toasted. I cut off the crusts. You can use really any bread here. So rub it with a bit of butter, and then use that half piece of garlic, the open side or the side you cut down, and rub it on the garlic toast. The coarseness of the toast will start breaking up the garlic a bit. You'll get the essential oils off there, and you've got sort of a pseudo garlic bread. So this is what our onions look like after about an hour. This is what you're shooting for. You've got these brown pieces stuck to the bottom of the pot. Don't worry, we'll deal with those in a second, but a really dark brown color is what you're going for here. With those pieces on the bottom, we're going to deglaze. So I have a bit of cognac here. If you don't want to use cognac, you could use chicken stock or even water here, but some liquid here to basically scrape up the bottom of the bowl. So use that wooden spoon, scrape everything off. It should come off relatively easily as the alcohol is burning off. You'll smell it, and you really want that alcohol smell to completely burn off. Season very lightly here with a bit of salt and a bit of pepper. Don't go overboard here. We're going to season again at the end, and it's much easier to season at the end than it is at this point. So now we're getting to the soup part. We want to add chicken stock is what I have here. You could use beef stock, but that could be a little bit too much sometimes. Vegetable stock works as well. Any stock here, just pour that in. We're going to season with a bit of fresh herbs, a bit of fresh thyme, a dried bay leaf, and let that simmer for 15 or 20 minutes. It's not going to reduce, it's not going to change all that much. We're not trying to cook this down, we're just trying to let these flavors meld and get to know each other. So after about 15 or 20 minutes, you'll have something that looks a little like this. It looks very similar to what it looked like a second ago. Just give that a stir to make sure everything is all combined. Pick out the thyme. I should have tied these up because there were a few pieces left, but it's not the end of the world. The bay leaf, though, has to come out. Try and find that. Sometimes it's at the bottom of the pot, but pick it out. Set those aside. They've done their job. We don't need them anymore. So last but not least, we're going to add some flavor enhancers to this. We're going to balance out some of our richness from all that butter and onions with a bit of acid. So that is vinegar that we've added to the mix here. You can add really any vinegar that you want. And then we're going to give it a taste to make sure that it tastes good. Like I said, we seasoned a few seconds ago, but this is where you can really add as much salt as necessary to get this tasting the way you want. So you're almost done. Last step now. You could eat this at this point, but we're going to make it, the way that most people think of French onion soup. Ladle some of that soup base into your oven-proof bowls. Take that crouton, just push it down slightly so it's covered in your soup, and then a whole lot of Gruyere cheese right on top. Really, probably put more on here than you think you need. I had a bit of Parmesan in my fridge that, really you can't go wrong. I know Parmesan's not French, but whatever, the more cheese, the better is what I think. So a little bit of Parmesan on top, and we are going to set that on a lined baking sheet. I like lining them because you can get bubbling over here. You can get the cheese melting off. So rimmed baking sheet, a little bit of parchment paper to catch anything that drips off. And of course, add a bit more cheese. You can, like I said, never have enough if you have some that's sticking around on your cutting board. Under the broiler, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, just keep an eye on it. You want it to be golden brown. You can cook it a little more than I did. You can cook it a little less. It's completely up to you, but you'll have something that looks like this. Garnish with a little bit of that chive that we cut up. Adds a bit of color, adds a little bit of that oniony chive type flavor. I like putting a little bit more salt on top, a little bit of finishing salt, a little bit of crunch, obviously a little bit of salt flavor. And that is how you make French onion soup. So let's sit back and enjoy this cheese pull and delicious French onion soup. Thanks so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it and you get a chance to make French onion soup at home. If you did like this video, leave a thumbs up below, hit that like button. Of course, leave a comment if you have any tips and tricks of your own, and you can subscribe to this channel to always stay up to date on the videos that we're making in the future. So, see you next time.